welcome everyone today to our webinar. I'm Jim Benson, and I'll be the moderator of today's discussion. I also lead strategic alliances and marketing for Current. In our last webinar, but not beyond smart lighting, Create Your City of the Future, Jesse Burst, the chairman of the Smart Cities Council, and Austin Ash, general manager of GE Intelligent Cities, they both covered how cities are transforming digitally and leveraging its existing infrastructure to drive economic development, increase citizen safety, drive cost savings, and higher levels of sustainability. They also covered some key challenges, case study deployments like San Diego, and if you weren't able to see that, there is a recording of that on our website, currentbyge.com, for those who missed it. And during that webinar and after, we got a lot of questions about our partnership with AT&T, so we decided that would be a great subject to review during this July webinar. Our subject matter experts today will be Jory, who is the Director of Sales and Business Development at Smart Cities at AT&T. Jory was kind enough to step in at last minute for Mike Zito, who had an urgent conflict keeping him from able to join us today. And Austin Ash, who is the General Manager of Current by GE's Intelligent Cities business. Together, Jory and Austin today are going to cover our collaboration and solution, why we think and have seen it's going to drive the app economy. We're going to talk a little bit about smart city procurement models that are evolving in the marketplace today, provide an update of our activation in San Diego, and discuss some key learnings and challenges still that the market's facing. I'm just going to start off with a little housekeeping first. Please type in your questions into the chat function of the webinar. I'm going to hold them till the end, and then I'll ask Austin and Jory those questions, and we'll do our best to cover all of them. So please, anytime you have a question, please type it in. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Jory to start us off. Jory, please take it away.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it. What a pleasure to be here today. So in February, earlier this year, AT&T and Current, powered by GE, struck a historic deal to redefine smart cities for the digital age, bringing together over 250-plus years of experience as technology pioneers and innovators. Two companies with extensive history in infrastructure and communications, with a goal of advancing the digital era of urban development. This is powerful because it brings together the abilities of both companies in data analytics, particularly from Current, combined with an open platform and the engagement of an app developer community, in collaboration with AT&T, who's a U.S. market leader for the Internet of Things, with the largest number of connected devices and a commanding flow share, who's been working with cities and local government across the U.S. for over 100-plus years, and a robust ecosystem of partners between both companies to help us enable a complete, seamless end-to-end solution for our customers. Our platforms and services are active in top industries, including energy, automotive, healthcare, transportation, manufacturing, agriculture, and more. As you can see, we're definitely positioned for success with GE and AT&T at the helm, developing a smart city. So what is a smart city? Everybody has many definitions for a smart city. We particularly define this as the integration of technology with a strategic approach to sustainability, cost reduction, citizen well-being, and economic development, with highly secure connectivity that unites people, processes, and assets to improve management efficiencies, reduce operational costs, and deliver a better living experience for citizens. Ultimately, our goal is to make cities cleaner, safer, and stronger by connecting things such as lighting, water, parking, public transportation, and digital infrastructure. Our goal is to help cities save money, preserve their natural resources, and build better relationships with their citizens. IoT solves real problems with the ability to deliver real return on investment to cities, engage citizens, and increase public safety. So that's how we'll work with the definition of a smart city today. There are a lot of drivers that are influencing the development and need for a smarter city. But like we just talked about, the reason driving it is increased urbanization. So one of the statistics that I always like to quote is city populations are increasing at the rate of 7,500 people an hour, which is urban populations will shortly count for 4% of the total global population. So if you start at the top of this wheel with increased urbanization, this puts an additional strain on public safety. Public safety is the first and foremost on the mayor's minds, the police department's minds, and their citizens. They're hearing firsthand how this is impacting the daily lives of citizens and have a real need to solve for public safety. Aging infrastructure, whether it's pipes, bridges, or roads, these are major issues in the U.S. and across the country and across the world. The fourth factor is economic development and job creations. Most leaders that we've been speaking with have a focus on driving economic development, job creation, innovation, and recruiting and maintaining the leading edge talent within their cities. Smart cities can help to bridge all of this. And lastly, you can't talk about a smart city without talking about environmental sustainability and creating a city that is accessible by all citizens, regardless of economic status, background, etc. So most smart city initiatives will help us more efficiently consume resources and go about our lives. And that is critical, that all of this always comes back to the citizen and the benefit that it brings to help them live a better life. At AT&T, we were actually the first carrier to enter into the smart cities business. AT&T Smart Cities is part of the Internet of Things organization, and our framework model, as you can see here, includes partners, best practices, specific solutions, and business models, and is meant to be scaled across cities of all sizes and regions and university campuses. Our goal when we set out was to build a framework that was 70 to 80% defined and 20 to 30% customizable. Because there are different challenges based on geographic, economic, demographic, and political differences in cities and regions, we knew that we needed to create a model that could scale and flex to meet the specific needs of the city or entity that we were working in. The model, as you can see, it's 4 pillars, and it starts with the golden thread of what a smart city is, and that is highly secure connectivity. That is the right connectivity for the right solution at the right time, be it 4G LTE, be it Wi-Fi, fiber, satellite, depending on what that solution is, we bring the secure connectivity to connect that. A smart city, and Austin will talk more about this in the presentation, is of course all about the data that you're able to gather from the connectivity of all the sensors and devices and solutions. And so our platforms allow for data and cloud storage, data analytics, and of course, security is at the forefront of this Smart Cities framework and what we deploy as part of our framework. The third pillar is vertically integrated solutions. And we have these in energy and utilities, transportation, citizen engagement, public safety, and infrastructure. We'll get into a little more detail on each of those, but we're bringing the right solutions to these regions and cities to meet their growing needs. And of course, no carrier or no one could do this all alone. And that is why strategic alliances like the one we have formed with GE and the others listed here, and a bunch of other companies across a variety of vertical solutions are critical to the success and growth of our Smart Cities framework and being able to deploy in a rapid manner the right solution to meet that city's growing needs. We have taken a thought leadership position over the last 2 years since we founded our Smart Cities organization, and we're working to, for example, develop standards with the National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST. We've worked with the Smart Cities Council, US Ignite. We've counseled over 20 cities as part of our Envision America support, and we've launched Spotlight Cities in 8 different cities across the country, where we worked with our strategic alliance partners and city leadership to identify the needs of the cities and bring the right solutions to a specific area of those cities so that we could pilot them and then grow them to citywide deployments. So all in all, it takes all of these components, we feel, to develop a holistic Smart Cities Framework that creates a lasting smart city that really moves us from where we used to be in Smart City 2.0 to Smart City, or Smart City 1.0 to Smart City 2.0. And we'll get more into that as we continue through the conversation. Our vertically integrated solutions, as mentioned, are one of the core pillars of our Smart Cities Framework. So when we look at energy and utilities, we have a private LTE network. We have to look at smart lighting as a huge pillar of our energy and utilities as well. We know that lighting, and we'll talk more about this as well, is obviously the foundational element of a city's infrastructure, and arguably the most important as well, because it is ubiquitously covering a city, it already exists, and the asset remains at a great height for us to leverage and put additional sensors, digital infrastructure, et cetera, and build off of that. Transportation is another pillar of the vertically integrated solutions that we bring to the table, thinking about how can we, working from route optimization, how can we work with cities to help people get around more efficiently, more safely? How can we help people park, such as smart parking solutions, and be able to know from the moment they leave their home to the moment they get on the road where they're going to park, how they're going to get around the city, again, to make life easier for people to get around. And of course, if it's easier for them to get around, to spur more economic development, they'll spend more money, they'll be more inclined to go out and about in the city, and those are the kinds of things that we're enabling. So it is about the solution and the technology itself, but at the end of the day, it's how can all of these things enable that citizen to live a better life. So that comes, citizen engagement has its own pillar here, but truly citizen engagement encompasses everything that's part of our Smart Cities Framework, where we want to talk about digital kiosks and how those can help people get around a city, keep them informed of what's going on, keep them safe, et cetera, and help them to, again, with that safety piece overlaying all of that. When we talk about public safety, we really want to take all the data from all of these different integrated solutions, and we want to make that data useful so that we can start to understand patterns in cities. So with gunshot detection as an example, if we start to understand where the gunshot was fired from, how many gunshots were fired, what activity existed in that area before the gunshot occurred, then we can help the police force start to understand patterns in their cities to stop that gunshot from even being fired in the future. Those are the kind of outcomes that we're looking to help. We're looking to help cities with their existing assets manage things better, easier. And lastly, infrastructure, which is really what we want to spend the bulk of the time on today, which digital infrastructure falls into, is how can we create a ubiquitous, seamless digital infrastructure across the city that becomes the eyes, ears of a city and starts to understand that heartbeat of a city. And with that, Austin will definitely get into some more detail about what that looks like and what the vision is and where it's deployed and how that is working today. So Austin, I'll
Thanks, Jory. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. It's an honor and pleasure to be with you all. As Jory mentioned, she's now defined smart cities for you, and she's talked about how all the various elements of a smart city kind of come together to form this all-inclusive solution for both citizens and city operators. And I thought I'd just spend a little bit of time talking about, Smart Cities 1.0 versus Smart Cities 2.0, and talk about some of the pain points that both city operators, city officials, and citizens all experience today. Smart Cities 1.0 is sort of the traditional smart cities landscape that we think about. It's how does City Hall go about making itself, reinventing itself, procuring solutions to help improve certain capabilities. And it's all about the directors in each of those departments trying to make strategic decisions that drive livability and workability in a city. And what's interesting about the Smart Cities movement is there hasn't yet been a partnership such as the GE AT&T one or a technology like the one I'm going to show you that can actually, in one shot cut across all those capabilities, all those departments, all the areas of need in one fell swoop. And that's where IoT comes in. The Internet of Things and a truly horizontal platform is what enables you to do that. And so we're going to show you what that horizontal platform is and talk in detail about that. But as we think about it, here are some ways to kind of understand going into Smart Cities 2.0 how cities are thinking about their situations, right? As of today, they've got analog methods of measuring things, traffic studies that are hiring consultants and doing point source studies on the side of the road is not the same thing as having real-time data from sensors from all over the city. Battery-powered sensors are nice for speed of deployment, but they're not sustainable for the long term, and they're not scalable throughout the city because it's very hard to maintain battery-powered anything without having to go back out and replace the batteries. Point source solutions are kind of what cities drive toward today. Each department has their own funding bucket, their own strategy, their own initiative, and it's very difficult to have one department use their budget and use their resources to procure something that meets their goals, their needs, as well as somebody else's department's needs at the same time. And so it makes it very slow and very expensive process to procure things like cameras or other sensor mechanisms. And quite honestly, this creates a lot of redundancies in the system, as well as just the extremely low pace that it takes. And things are getting complicated. There's a lot of things out there that are trying to get the city's attention when it comes to smart cities. And it's very challenging with the resources and the budget that cities have to be able to take in all that information and make a strategic decision. So it's really nice to have an open, scalable platform that gives you some flexibility. Budgets are always key when it comes to cities, making sure that they're spending taxpayer dollars and bringing in as many grant dollars as they possibly can for things that are as extensible as possible and not just one-time use things. And while they do all that, they have to do this in a way that's aesthetically pleasing, that meets the needs of the citizens in a way that they can grasp onto it and really embrace it. And this is really hard. And that's why we developed the solution that we did, which is our IoT sensor platform for cities. And as Jory said, it really starts with repurposing street lighting infrastructure. When you think about a street lighting pole and how many of them there are in your city, my guess is you probably don't realize that there are actually anywhere from a few thousand to tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of streetlights, depending on the size of your city that you live in. And what that means is that there are approximately 400 million streetlights in the world that light up our streets every night. And of those 400 million poles, each of them has power running to it and ends in the sky at a very special elevation, about 30 feet or 10 meters, which provide a perfect piece of real estate and elevation point for sensors. Powered sensors that are continuously powered, and when you integrate it seamlessly into the street lighting landscape, you can very aesthetically scale the solution across any streetscape to now start bringing in incredibly valuable data. Now, the sensor pod that we've developed can basically transform a pole into many of the human senses that we experience every day. It can help the pole see, it can help it hear, it can help it feel. And so by extracting all of this incredible data from the streets and the sidewalks, we basically enable the city operators to put their finger on the pulse of the city. And no 2 days are alike. In fact, no 2 hours are alike in a given city. And having that real-time and historical data at your fingertips really enables you to deploy some very interesting solutions across the realm of the city. And so by leveraging AT&T's safe and secure, scalable connectivity, we're able to get that data into the cloud and start opening that data up through an open data platform in the form of building blocks, things like temperature, humidity, vibrations, parking space availability, traffic counts, size of cars, count of cars, pedestrian counts, pedestrian movement. We can see all of this from every single streetlight and bring that data not only to the city operators, but bring it to their open data initiatives. With these open data initiatives, the cities are actively recruiting ideas and thoughtful, energetic developers, software developers, to actually help them build the smart city applications of the future. Before I talk about the applications, let me just give you a couple of examples of how these sensors work. GE and AT&T have partnered with Intel to actually transform that sensor pod into an extensible sensor that leverages computer vision analytics to extract metadata from anything that moves around the nervous system of the city. And when we say the nervous system, we talk about the arteries and the veins of the city, which are the streets and the sidewalks. So being able to capture the speed, the count, the lane the car is traveling in, which direction the car is traveling in, is extremely important and valuable metadata that we can bring to the cloud and present it to you and to other developers. Another example of this technology is with pedestrians. Again, the sensors are actively hunting for things moving around in the city, and as somebody walks by or groups of people walk by, we are able to extract the number of people, the count of the people, the direction that they're traveling, and we can help bring this data to the city and to other infrastructure even in a way that helps keep pedestrians extremely safe and secure, as well as help surrounding businesses understand some of the evolving dynamics of their city block. Parking, of course, is something that's near and dear to all of our hearts. I can't remember the last time I tried to drive downtown and spent about 10 or 15 minutes just circling the block looking for parking. Imagine if you had an application on your phone or on your mobile device that told you exactly where an open parking space was. These sensors are able to extract all of this data that you've just seen, and even more. With a simple over-the-air upgrade, we can train these sensors to detect anything else of interest. Now, one of the questions that might be circulating is, what do you do with all this data? How do you manage it? You've got 100,000 sensors in a city collecting all this data in real time and bringing it to the cloud. What type of IT lift is it to integrate that into a city? How do you manage who gets access to what data stream? How do you prevent people from getting unauthorized access? And that's where GE and AT&T have come together to bring you and the citizens, the developers, the operators, the city officials, a control console that manages all of this data. Imagine the ability to just, at the point of a mouse, being able to authorize a group of users to a certain set of data for either a prolonged period of time or a limited period of time. You could monitor all this data usage, find out which data sets are most valuable, and of course, eventually bring all this data together in a way that's even helping you predict future usage as more and more use cases get addressed. And of course, as more and more of this data becomes valuable to the citizens of the city, it gives you a flexible, quick and easy way to upgrade your plan and bring even more satisfaction, more workability, more livability to the city. And with this open data and all of this traffic and parking and public safety data available now at our fingertips from every corner, every mid-block of the city, it's important to understand that there are actually a handful, more than a handful, of companies that currently are trying to tackle these problems. They're able to do it through their point source solution, and many of them are absolutely fantastic. Most of the folks you see on this page are extremely reputable. Many of them are global, and they have established themselves as experts and leaders in their particular field, which could be transportation, it could be parking, it could be public safety. And what our platform has done is actually given the ability for all of these ecosystem application developers to leverage the same data from the same piece of hardware in a city to improve upon their solution. And this has created an extraordinary amount of demand for the sensor data that we are creating. And I won't talk about each of these individual. Jory mentioned gunshot detection as a great example, right? Having someone like ShotSpotter being able to gather this data, not just from gun violence areas, but from a broader security coverage of the city, is very interesting. Civic Smart, for example, a company that does parking optimization for a city, has handheld parking optimizers that they use with the city officials to optimize parking, and now they're able to get sensor data across the city in a way that they never would have dreamed. And so these professional companies are out there working with cities, and now we've given them the ability to expand to their value with one simple deployment of an IoT platform like our CityIQ, which does bring the question up about economic development. If there are truly this much demand for data and for this type of software development, what else could it do for a city? Economic development is literally at every mayor and city chief data officer, city manager's fingertips with a platform like this, and they are able to unlock it with one deployment. And if you could just think of this sensor, which is very similar to an iPhone, think about iPhones being all over the poles in the city, and then think about what were to happen if there would be a customizable app store that a city official could open up and say, you know what, we're going to use this app over here and this app over here, and we're going to continue to foster and create demand with other developers in the community. This could be high school students, college students. It could be incubators or entrepreneurs that are just trying to get their hands, developing software applications, maybe away from the mobile device industry and onto something a little bit more industrial, onto something that maybe has a little bit more of an impact to their family, to their friends, to their community, something that they see or feel every day that they wish the city could address. Now they have the power to do it because the city has opened the data up to them. And when you look at the numbers on this page, it's staggering to think that Apple's App Store alone has generated $40 billion of revenue for the development community. Now, this is since the inception in 2008, but $40 billion is a lot of money. And with that, almost 2 million jobs created, 75% of those all being related to software development, means that cities have the ability to literally unlock the potential in their own city to solve some of their biggest problems with this type of platform. And that creates an opportunity for everybody in the city to experience something like this in a very unique way. We've also experimented with this platform across the globe by opening this data up. And we've actually built out over 50 applications by just educating the broader development community about what the power of this sensor data could be and how flexible the APIs are. You can see on this page that all over the globe, we have had application, we've had hackathons, we've had events that have spurred interest in development. And we just did one recently, for example, in San Diego, where we had over 300 developers register with over 20 teams developing apps. The top 3 applications that were built were actually awarded personally by the chief data officer, and each of those 3 applications are going to be continued to be developed and fostered to enhance the city of San Diego's deployment, which they're going to finish by the end of the year. 3,200 of our CityIQ nodes powered by Predix and AT&T. And so City of Atlanta, for example, is another city that is just now realizing the power of this. They're doing hackathons and education seminars with their local community to help everyone understand about what is on their poles in their city and how valuable this infrastructure is to them as citizens. And we've seen adoption across in countries that we didn't even think we would. Mexico City, during our global hackathon, had the winning application from a high school student there. And so we just don't know what we don't know about the creativity that's out there, just like we didn't know that silly games like Angry Birds and Pokemon Go would end up on your smartphone. Who knows what the potential is of smart city applications? It can be anything from walking in quiet neighborhoods to detecting glass breaking to food truck optimization. Where are the people and where are the parking spaces for food trucks? There's so many opportunities here to get rapid deployment of use cases and value to the citizens when you open this data up. And so we've talked about a lot of the benefits that a platform like this could have, mainly its ability to be horizontal. All departments benefit, all citizens benefit, all visitors benefit, right? And so through these cost avoidance mechanisms that cities can benefit from, there is an extraordinary opportunity for them to scale something like this at a speed that they never would have thought of. They don't have to think about deploying individual sensor solutions anymore. They can do one sensor just like our smartphones and then virtualize the solutions through software and through data. And that will optimize transportation networks. It'll optimize public safety. It'll improve their public services, faster emergency response. Emergency response, just to give you an example, we were with 400 mayors at the U.S. Conference of Mayors in Miami a couple of weeks ago, and a couple of them were talking to us about the need to reduce response time by just 45 seconds to increase their response rates to heart attack victims. Imagine if we were able to do that through a platform like this and how much value that would have. Of course, increasing Wi-Fi connectivity, or just injecting the knowledge of IoT and digital and problem solving and community engagement into the schools can actually redefine the civic engagement model for cities in a huge way. We talked about the economic development and the growth and just the amount of civic pride and enthusiasm that comes out of this. You'll see some other big events from GE and AT&T this year that we'd love for you all to be a part of, to experience what it's like to be a part of these problem-solving situations where city officials and citizens come together to solve problems. Really, and this is all about igniting a whole new Smart Cities 2.0, right? It's no longer about let's find the one thing that kind of works. It's let's find the one thing that enables us to solve many, many things and be flexible and scalable in that manner. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over back to Jory to talk about our evolving procurement models.
Thank you, Austin. Great job. As you talked about, the procurement process typically has been slow and expensive and created a lot of redundancies. And that is where we're seeing the need for the evolving procurement models. So I wanted to talk through a couple of different approaches that we as AT&T and GE are utilizing in cities and with utilities to drive the scale, drive cost avoidance, and really enable cities to take this horizontal, or as we like to frame it up, holistic approach to a smart city and allow them to scale rapidly. So the first one is utilizing energy savings from LED and wireless control upgrades. Perfect example of this is San Diego, who is leveraging approximately $2.4 million in energy savings costs per year to then be able to fund the 3,200 digital infrastructure nodes that Austin talked about that will be deployed in San Diego by the end of the year. So it doesn't require any additional investment outside of the cost savings that they are getting from deploying an LED wireless control lighting upgrade that makes the city function better and serves the citizens in that capacity. So you can take that model, and it can be energy savings. It can be savings from multiple different angles, but that is one evolving procurement model that we're seeing play out across the marketplace. The second one is utilizing the city infrastructure budget, as Austin talked about as well. When we look at utilizing the existing infrastructure, like light poles, there is a budget set aside to maintain those light poles. As you can see here, we've listed the 2017 top city infrastructure budgets, and they're quite large. So if we're able to not only take energy savings, button that up, and put that together with using funds that already exist in a city, that is another interesting procurement model and way to pay for a digital infrastructure solution. The first, obviously, step in all of this is we need the cities to see the value in the solution, which is pretty easy to see if you listen to all the points that Austin pointed out. And then we need to help them with these different funding models. So the third one that we've outlined here is the utilities obviously play a critical role in cities. We work with utilities across the country, in particular recently working here in Atlanta with Georgia Power, and we are helping them to provide the cities as a service model. So taking digital infrastructure and turning that into a service for cities. This helps to drive increased value to the city and the citizens and provides a way for the utilities to continue to stay relevant and to deliver value to the cities that they're a big part of. So that is a third way to work through the evolving procurement models and really get the funding that we continue to hear, as Austin talked about. We were just with 400 mayors at the U.S. Conference of Mayors. We meet with mayors around the country. We've met with over 100 in the last 2 months, and that seems to be the continued conversation is how are we going to fund and procure this in a way that doesn't take us 5 to 10 years, but we can rapidly scale and deploy one solution across our entire city. And that's really what we're talking about here. In addition to helping cities develop specific programs to meet their needs, to help with procurement and financing, looking at public-private partnerships, and of course, aggressive financing options also exist and can't be left out of this conversation. So in summary, as we just talked about in the evolving procurement models, utilities play a huge role. They often own majority or at least half to a third of the light poles in the cities that we're engaged with. So partnership, collaboration with the utilities, with the city, and with companies like GE and AT&T is critical to helping to scale digital infrastructure and Smart Cities 2.0. We know that the procurement process can and is long, so learning to work within that cycle, to offer test beds, to offer solutions through utilities to minimize that procurement process and drive efficiencies across the entire city staff and organizations is something that we're very invested in and very aware of key learnings as we've been in the industry. We know city resources are constrained. We know that cities still often work in silos, so everything that we do helps to break down many of those silos, helps to see the value and how we engage each of the different city departments is really critical to the success of a truly integrated, holistic approach to a smart city. And multi-network connectivity is another critical factor. So again, going back to connectivity being the golden thread of a smart city, the golden thread of a successful deployment of digital infrastructure, we must be able to provide a multi-network solution that enables connectivity in the right way at the right time. And lastly, a lot of cities, although they might have thought they were on the path to being a smart city, really have still been in the method of deploying point solutions. So helping them, being a partner to them in developing a true Internet of Things strategy is something that they're still getting used to and something that we are working closely to help them enable. So in collaboration with GE and our ecosystem of trusted relationships we have with many of you who I know are on the phone and cities around the world, we definitely feel confident that we've learned a lot. We still have a lot to learn ahead, but we will all continue to lead the way to Smart City 2.0 evolution and beyond. So thank you for your time, and I think we're going to go ahead and open it up to Q&A now.
Thanks, Jory. With that, we've gotten a lot of questions in, so I'm going to go ahead and start with the first one. Austin, I'll send it over to you. What steps do you take to keep the digital infrastructure solution and the data secure?
Thanks, Jim. That is a fantastic question. I think it goes without saying that cybersecurity is on the top of everyone's mind when it comes to IoT. And while no solution is impervious, what GE has done is taken a multi-layered approach to ensuring and enabling that this data that's being collected by these sensors and the whole end-to-end architecture is absolutely as solid as possible. The 4 layers are securing the hardware itself, right? So making sure that no one can bypass these security certificates or even physically tamper with the device without the device knowing that there is intrusion happening is sort of the level 1, or the first layer. The second one is making sure that we have a connectivity partner that understands how to transport data from a device to the cloud. And Jory, of course, could talk to that, but I can tell you that AT&T is one of the few that meets GE strict requirements for safe and secure connectivity for a broad range of our solutions, not just smart cities, but for smart healthcare and smart locomotives and even nuclear power and fighter jet engines, commercial jet engines. We've done a lot to bridge that gap and ensure that there's a lot of certificates in place for that. The third layer is at the data center itself. So at the data centers that we own and control, of course, they're secured very, very heavily. And then the fourth layer is the actual access layer to the data. So you can have something that's open and secure at the same time if you have something like our control console that lets you open the data up and close the data down at a moment's notice to anyone and everyone who wants to get access or needs to get access to this data. And so those 4 layers create a very safe and secure environment for the city to deploy something like this and not have to worry about intrusion detection. And if there is any intrusion, we of course know about it immediately and take the proper steps to prevent that from continuing.
Great, thanks, Austin. Jory, here's one for you. What kind of ways are we seeing cities finance or pay for this solution, and are we seeing any public-private partnerships?
Thanks, Jim. Yes, absolutely. There are multiple ways, and we got into that a little bit in the procurement discussion, but I think public-private partnerships have been and will continue to be a growing part of the model and the approach that cities are able to work with public and private entities to drive value to the citizens, to decrease their operational efficiency, their operational costs, and to implement technology like this that isn't only setting them up for a smart city of today, but truly is a platform for tomorrow. And the PPPs, yes, I think what is unique about public-private partnerships is that it's not a one-size-model-fits-all. It's truly a conversation between these public-private entities and what they're looking to do in their specific city in terms of how we structure those public-private partnerships. But we at AT&T and GE are very open to these conversations and are having these across the country today. Another element that we talked about is developing programs. So, again, taking different elements of cost savings, bucket that with utilizing existing budget, figuring out what makes sense again for the city. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Austin, we got a 2-part question for you. How much maintenance do the smart city sensors need, first off? And then is there a network operations center that oversees the sensor network?
Oh, that's a great 2-part question. I might actually take the first part and then let Jory take the second part. The first part is the maintenance of the node, and it's an interesting question because one of the things that GE prides himself with is building extremely robust industrial devices. I mentioned a little while ago, we build jet engines, wind turbines, nuclear power plants, locomotives, healthcare equipment, and of course we've been in the street lighting business since Thomas Edison founded our business and started and invented the light bulb. So one of the things that we know really, really well is the outdoor environment and what kind of stressors there are out there. And we design our node to accommodate a number of those environments and situations that are unpredictable. And so what we've done with our node is actually designed it so that it's virtually maintenance free. The software can be upgraded over the air. Any bug fixes or software patches or things like that will be addressed over the air. You don't have to go back up to the pole and plug anything into a port or do any hard resets or anything like that. So that makes it extremely hands-free. And then as far as just from enduring the elements, we use extremely robust materials that help it prevent, corrosion. It's 3G, in some cases 4G rated for vibrations. There's heating elements inside that prevent the sensor windows from getting iced over or fogged over, so kind of have a built-in defroster. There's a lot of design components built in, and of course, working with someone like Intel, we use automotive-grade processors and other silicon that's just extremely robust and designed for very, very intense environments. And so our design life is extremely long. Our design strategy is for 10 plus years. We warrant the product for 5 years, and maintenance, of course, becomes very, very, very hands-off. And so I'll let Jory answer the network center part of the question.
Thanks, Austin. So I believe the second part of the question was, is there a network operations center to help manage the connectivity for digital infrastructure? And yes, of course, there's a multi-layered approach to managing connectivity. Our goal, especially with the deployment of digital infrastructure, is to be able to provide connectivity that makes sense for the city. So that can be in the form of LTE, that can be in the form of fiber. And with the connectivity, let's talk specifically if that was an LTE SIM, we want to provide maximum control and visibility to our end customer so that they can see the state and the data usage and the status of that particular SIM card. We, of course, are managing the network on our end, and we provide 24/7 support for that network. But again, it's about us having visibility as needed, but it's also about providing the customer with the ability to manage their connectivity in the way that makes sense for the solution that's deployed for them.
Okay, great. Austin, I'll throw the next one to you. Are the sensors or are the digital infrastructure system, is it interoperable with other sensors, software, app developing software?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. It's one of these notions that customers really, city customers in particular, really need to feel comfortable with, is this idea of openness. And there are other companies that are trying to do proprietary protocols and things of this nature, which we believe really limits the ability for the solution to scale. And so AT&T and GE have tried very hard to make this as open and flexible as possible. And it works that way on both the edge or the hardware side as well as the cloud side. So just to give you a couple examples, this node, going back to some of the ways that it was architected and built, has Bluetooth and Wi-Fi connectivity to it. So a third-party sensor could actually be deployed in a city and leverage this backhaul if the city wanted it to. Could be a radiation sensor or a garbage can monitor sensor. It could be a soil content sensor. It could be a air pollution sensor. It could be all sorts of things. As long as that sensor speaks a very standard protocol like Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, then they can leverage this IoT network to bring that data back. The other way to think about it is on the cloud side, and that's with these APIs that are open. Once the city opens up the data and provides the application development community with the tokens needed to use the data, then it can be integrated. This data can be integrated into anybody else's platform, anybody else's application, anybody else's solution, and it really becomes extensible that way. And as time goes on, we know that there are big things coming, autonomous cars and drones, and Jory mentioned the population growth and how all of that ties together in a city. It's really important that cities consider utilizing something that's open and extensible, something like the CityIQ would certainly accommodate that and make sure that anybody and everybody that the city wants to work with can, in fact, work with the solution.
All right, thanks, Austin. Jory, I'll throw this one over to you. Feel free to have Austin chime in. We often hear about university campuses being living labs for technology solutions, especially ones geared towards sustainability. But smart lighting doesn't seem to be a big part of smart campus strategy at the present. Are there specific steps being taken to penetrate that market, and what problems, roadblocks are there, if any, that you're facing?
Great, thanks, Jim. Yeah, we do a lot of work, and when we talked about our Spotlight City program that we initiated last year, one of the great examples is Georgia Tech University that we work with from a university perspective. What we found with universities in particular is a huge focus on public safety as well as parking and accessibility. So not only for the students that attend class, but for the visitors who are coming there to make it easy for them to experience the campus. So those seem to be two of the key drivers. And so I think when we look at it from that perspective, we can understand, lighting needs to be a part of that public safety solution. And when lighting is a part of the public safety solution, again, provides another great platform for digital infrastructure and sensors and that public safety network to be augmented. And that is the conversation that we're having at a lot of universities. So I don't know that they're not interested. They are very interested in the cost savings and then, of course, the benefit that it brings to the students to help keep them safe. I think the roadblock is a matter of depending on where that university is located. Is it in the middle of the city? Is it more suburban? Are the lights on the campus, on the exterior of the campus? And then who owns the light poles becomes a big part of that conversation. So it's not a roadblock. It just happens to be that there could be a couple different players and stakeholders that need engagement around the lighting conversation at a university campus. And Austin, of course, please feel free to chime in if you have anything else to add there.
No, I think that was a great answer. The only thing I would add to what Jory is saying is that, universities are absolutely small cities when you get down to it. Lots of buildings, lots of roads, lots of sidewalks, lots of, need to service that community. And so I think part of the obstacles is just education in general. I think that if I didn't know about smartphones, a few years ago, I'd still be walking around with my GPS device, my PDA device, my cell phone, my flashlight, right? I'd have all these devices. Instead of having a smartphone that kind of brought all of that together and then virtualized my solutions through an app store. I think that once universities wrap their arms around the power of some of these IoT solutions, it will be very rapidly adopted and value will be brought to the faculty, the students, and the visitors of those campuses.
Great. I just add one more thing to campuses. Outside of the campus, the universities are very active on taking the data and working with the city to help create new applications, new analytics, to really make the data more valuable. So just as an example, in San Diego, with the University of California, San Diego, we're working with them to give them access to the data that's coming from our digital infrastructure, and they're using that in collaboration with leaders from the city to really plan out how that can be used to do a lot of things. The one thing that they're focused on is how it can improve traffic around the city through new analytics and different systems that they can build. So the campuses, it may not just be on the campuses, but it might also be the research departments working with the cities in the Metro Labs type of networks to drive the acceleration of smart cities. So Austin, I got another one for you. We can never talk about smart cities without a question about privacy concerns. So the question is, how do GE and AT&T with the digital infrastructure address privacy matters for citizens?
Yep, very important question. And I think that this is one that gets addressed through a couple of different layers. The first one is just understanding the sensor technology itself. And then the second one is more through a policy, and then the third is sort of from an adoption perspective. So from the sensors perspective, the sensors are not collecting any personal identifiable information. They are extracting metadata. One of the slides that we had the videos playing that showed how the computer vision analytics powered by Intel are able to extract just counts of people and counts of cars, right? There's no facial recognition or license plates or anything identifiable that comes through. It's just the counts and just the metadata, which is still extremely powerful data to drive some of these solutions, but of course respects everyone's privacy. And the second tier is from a policy perspective. I think many cities are starting to look at this and understand, what is a open data policy to them. And if you get on, open data, San Diego's open data portal, you'll see the amount of information that's actually available to the community, right? A lot of this data they don't want to hold and maintain. They want you to have access to it. They want you to use it. And if you can leverage it through an API and build an application, that's even better. And so the third one is just from an adoption perspective. I think there is this notion that once these sensors go up, that maybe you're kind of being watched, or this big brother feel, and I think that's very natural. The generations that are coming up behind me are going to expect that everything be connected and everything have a camera and everything be instant. And so the generational gap between those two will get closed very, very soon. And I think that when you start talking about the outcomes that are driven by these solution sets, now I'm able to find parking faster. Now my streetlights are optimized. Now I have a safer community from gunshot detection. I've got, open parking space detection. I've got garbage bins being emptied faster than normal, right? All these things start to come into play. The environment is being detected. I know where there's high pollen or low pollen concentration. Once you start seeing all of that data being collected, but really given to you and put in your hands for your use and for your family's safety and satisfaction and for your employees and for the broader good and how these applications get transferred from city to city, I think that the broader good in all of this sort of outweighs that feeling of Big Brother or any notion there.
Great. Thanks, Austin. We have a couple minutes left, so Jory, I'm going to throw the last one over to you. It addresses one of the challenges you talked about earlier. So how do you deal with cities that are generally make very slow decisions, while the solutions that we're trying to enable or sell change really quickly?
Great, thanks. Great question. Yes, so procurement can take a long time. But what we have found to be very, very successful from our perspective is we kind of work it from top down and bottom up is how I like to explain it. So we start with the mayor and the CIO of a city, really get a feel for what problems they're looking to solve, what solutions they already have in place, get that visionary perspective, kind of lock in on what they want to deploy. And then from there, when we go bottom up, we take a city department approach and we work it across all the city departments to, again, so we have the full picture and understanding of what is going on in that city, and we can help the city communicate and figure out the best, fastest, easiest way to deploy a holistic solution for their city versus, procuring one thing from one department, potentially and another from another, and that taking a very long cycle time. So understanding that holistic picture of what the city's trying to do, driving it top down and bottom up, is how we have found success in helping them to move faster and be more agile. And the great thing about the solution that we've been focusing so heavily on today with the collaboration between AT&T and GE's digital infrastructure is the fact that this solution is really taking into account where a city is today, what their needs are, but it's enabling a platform for growth for them for the next 5, 10 plus years so that the solution does not become obsolete by the time the solution is fully deployed across the city. And because you're deploying this solution on existing infrastructure, again, increasing the speed to be able to deploy this across the city.
Great, thank you, Jory. I want to, we have a bunch of questions still coming in. We'll try and get to those. I appreciate everybody for typing in your chat questions. It was very engaging. And I want to thank Jory and Austin for their presentation and their thoughts. And of course, we thank everyone for attending today's webinar. Please continue the dialogue with us at our Smart Cities website, both AT&T and Current by GE's. And we welcome your questions, ideas, and collaboration. You can find Jory, Austin, and I on LinkedIn. And, we would love it if you connected with us. And with that, we're going to go ahead and close today's webinar. And I hope everyone has a great rest of their day. Bye, everyone.